Today we continue reading my novel Bug Guy, a story about a giant bug who becomes an influencer. Chapter 4 Snuggle with the Buggle. When the cab arrived, I settled in and put on my seatbelt and tried to find a comfortable position as I was jostled by the stop-and-go motion of the vehicle through heavy traffic of the city. Lulled and bored by our glacial progress, I looked over to Evelyn, leaning back with her eyes closed. She was exceptionally pretty, even with those nerdy glasses, and since she looked like she was asleep, I felt free to admire her beauty. She had the smoothest and creamiest skin I've ever seen, with cute little blushing cheeks, her dark hair flowing onto her shoulders like a waterfall. She was every inch a fairy tale princess, to me anyway. Too bad I'm a giant hideous bug nobody will ever fall in love with, I thought, unless there's some giant ladybug out there, by which I mean a female bug, unless she just happened also to be a ladybug. As I stared at Evelyn with forlorn sadness, I reached out with my leg and brushed it against her hand. For all that she had said, I knew the two of us would never be together, but just for a brief moment, the sensation of her soft skin on my spiny leg was the closest thing to achieving intimacy with any other living being. The first time I touched her hand, it didn't wake her up, so I did it again. This time she reached up and grabbed my leg, opened her eyes with a smile, and said,
"It's okay if you want to hold my hand."
I was completely stunned by her reaction. It was unbelievable that anyone would want me to hold her hand. This has to be impossible, I thought. I must be dreaming.
Why are you being so shy all of a sudden? I saw the desire in your eyes. This was what you wanted all along, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, but...
But what?
Evelyn asked, her perky smile trained right on my face.
Don't you find me hideous, like everyone else?
I don't pay attention to what anyone else says. If I think you're cute, who's to tell me I'm wrong?
Then she wrapped her arms around me and laid her head on my neck. Her expression of affection were overwhelming, but considering how most people have been treating me for the past few days, I accepted it gladly. The traffic was still unbearable. We moved along like a giant snail with a steel shell, creeping at a pace that made sloths seem faster. After 30 minutes in traffic, Evelyn rubbed her eyes awake and said,
"Are we there yet?"
An accident on the freeway is backing up traffic for miles.
The driver said.
Expect another 30-minute delay at least.
Oh,
Evelyn said.
Just when I thought I could get out of work early to beat the rush, this shit happens. Such a shame, really, because I could almost see my apartment from here. Don't you wish we had flying cars, like in the Jetsons? Maybe a celebrity like you can get Tim Cook on the phone. If anyone can make it happen, he can.
Wait a minute. We don't need a flying car because I can fly.
Really?
No problem,
I said, then asked the cab driver to let us out.
Okay, but let me pull over to the shoulder so I can let you off safely.
He did so, and Evelyn paid with a card. Then the two of us got out and wished the driver good luck. As good as my word, I prepared for flight, unfurling my wings to lift off. Onlookers stared in amazement. Evelyn took it in stride as I hovered above her.
I hope you're not afraid of heights,
I said, then grabbed her with my 6 legs. As I rose into the air, she laughed with abandon as her hair fluttered wildly in the turbulence from my wings. The cars, roads, and buildings underneath us receded as we rose, growing smaller and smaller until the entire city looked as though it were in miniature.
Hold on tight. A drop from this height would be hazardous to your health.
But Evelyn was too flabbergasted by this turn of events to care what I was saying. too preoccupied with taking in the sensation of the wind's booming noise whizzing past her ears, not to mention the panoramic view of the city beneath us. She directed me to the balcony of her apartment, where I landed. When her feet touched down, she laughed so hard she playfully collapsed on the polished floor.
Are you okay?
Okay, I've never been better.
She practically sang, then stood up and said,
The air rushing against my face, the city so beautiful, the speed, the convenience. It was unbelievable.
She sat down in a deck chair to calm down, and I sat beside her. Finally, she opened the sliding glass door and we went inside. Her apartment was the most bizarre place I've ever been to. The walls were plastered with insect collections. There must have been thousands of beetles, moths, and butterflies, all of them pinned on white cardboard and behind a pane of glass. The sofa was in the shape of a giant cockroach, with cute ladybug-shaped pillows resting on the cushions. The coffee table was a pane of glass resting on a giant sculpture of a bee, and on it was a collection of toys from Bee Movie. Even the clock and light fixtures were plastic bees and beetles attached to them.
You really like insects, don't you?
I said, lying down on her sofa.
How'd you figure that out, you bright boy of a giant bug?
She asked, slipping out of her shoes and into ladybug slippers.
I have a sixth sense.
Evelyn flashed a radiant smile and said,
You don't have to tiptoe around the issue. Most people are speechless when they see all this for the first time. It started when I was 8. I hope my little hobby doesn't put you off.
If turning into a giant bug hasn't put me off myself, I don't see why I would be put off by your choice of interior decoration.
Great! Would you like to meet my friend Oliver?
She said, then motioned toward an aquarium full of rotting wood and reached inside. She pulled out a giant beetle. It wasn't as big as me, but the beetle the size of a mouse is giant by most people's standards. She put it in the palm of her hands, brought it over to me, and proudly showed it off.
He's a Hercules beetle, the biggest insect in existence. Until you, that is. He's like my baby. Aren't you, Oliver? Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
She turned back to me and said,
I like giant insects. The bigger, the better. It gives me such a thrill when they hold me. I mean, when I hold them.
She stuck Oliver in my face. His giant horn pointed right toward me.
Greg, this is Oliver. Oliver, this is Greg.
I felt somehow intimidated by this fierce-looking bug. How ironic.
Would you like to hold him?
She asked. Even though I had the urge to demur, I agreed out of politeness. I couldn't hold onto Oliver. He simply crawled up my leg and onto my body, used me as a jungle gym, going so far as to poke me with his horn. Fortunately, my exoskeleton prevented me from even feeling his pokes.
Oh, bad boy,
Evelyn said, by way of reproof, lifting Oliver off of me and putting him back into his tank.
Unfortunately, they don't live very long.
She sighed, then pointed to 3 other Hercules beetles mounted on the wall.
Every time one of them dies, I feel a little dead inside. I spent so much energy and love raising them from tiny baby larvae that it felt like I gave birth to them.
I'm so sorry about that.
But fortunately, I have you now, and you won't die on me in 3 years, would you?
I have no idea how my biology works, but I'd like to stick around for a while.
She looked sad and said,
You better. Anyway, let's not talk about it anymore. You must be hungry. Would you like to have dinner with me?
Oh no, I don't want to burden you with having to cook for me after your long day at work.
Evelyn waved her hands.
It's no burden for me. I already made your meal. It's ready and waiting for you.
Well, In that case, I'd be a bad guest if I reject your hospitality.
I said, following her into the kitchen. On her eating table was the most beautiful thing, a humongous platter of partially rotted fruit, sliced and arranged in concentric circles like a massive flower. Pineapple, kiwi, cantaloupe, starfruit, watermelon, banana, and strawberries, all of it covered in splotches of black, blue, green, and red mold, slowly decomposing into mush thanks to the bacteria living inside the flesh and dripping with a fetid liquid that smelled like the vomit of an alcoholic. A sortie of flies hover above this sensuous feast of delight for my bug senses.
How did you find so much rotting fruit?
Oh, that's easy. You just have to not be afraid of jumping into dumpsters.
I couldn't stop myself. Where were my manners? From bending over the platter and gorging on the first truly proper meal I had since becoming a giant bug. But I ate more like a pig, burying my mouth in the rainbow-colored mold, making a mess. My careless shoving pushed some pieces of fruit onto the floor.
Sorry about that.
Don't worry,
Evelyn said, retrieving the droppings and putting them back onto the platter before cleaning up the juices.
You must be famished after all we put you through today. You deserve this and more.
I tried to eat more carefully. As I was about to finish, she reached into the cupboard and pulled out a huge can with a picture of a fish.
Oh, Greg, I have a special treat for you.
What is it?
I asked, looking at the can and trying to decipher the foreign-looking writing on it.
It's surströmming, fermented herring, from Sweden. They put the herring inside the can with salt and leave it to ferment for 6 months. You can see the can is bulging from the ends. That's gas from the bacteria growing inside. Normally that means botulism, but it's perfectly fine for surströmming because the Swedish developed some sort of anti-botulism technology. They brag that it's the smelliest food in existence. But my guess is that a garbage-eating giant bug will take that as a good thing.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, let me go open it over there. The juices tend to spray out in all directions.
She sank the blade of her can opener into the lid and a hissing sound filled the room. Not a second after, a look of nausea spread across Evelyn's face. She dropped the can in the sink, covered her mouth, and ran out of the room. Not me. The scent of rotting fish was fine perfume to my bug senses. I even waved around my antennae to savor the complex bouquet. Ellen returned with a clothespin on her nose, saying that she'd never actually opened a can of surströmming before. To her credit, despite her revulsion, she resumed her task and finished opening the can, plopping it triumphantly in front of me. I sank my mouth into the can and eagerly devoured the slimy fish and drank the broth. Ellen sat across the table from me as happy as she could be, trying not to retch from the fragrance of the putrid meat. I looked up from the can I was burying my face in and said,
You don't have to sit with me while I scarf it all up. I'll understand.
No, it's fine.
Evelyn said, her voice all nasally from the nose clamp.
Now, I don't sit with you. I won't be able to see how much you're enjoying yourself. Seeing that brings me such joy that the smell pales by comparison.
That's sweet, but you don't have to endure any unpleasantness to make me happy.
No, it's no trouble. I eventually get used to the smell, just like I got used to the smell of cow poo.
After I polished off the whole can, Evelyn and I cleaned up together, like we were a married couple, after which she led me to her bedroom. I was about to fly out of her balcony when she said,
Wait, where are you going?
Back to my hotel room. tomorrow morning I fly back home.
Why don't you save yourself the trouble of flying across the city and stay here? I'll get you up bright and early.
Well,
She opened a closet, pulled out a Murphy bed, and said,
If it's too soon for us, here's your own place to sleep. Sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite.
Evelyn disappeared into the bathroom, leaving me alone, at least for the time being. I tried taking off my suit, but given my hands-deprived state, it was not possible without help, so I crawled into the bed fully dressed. After making myself comfortable, I turn on my laptop and open up Facebook to see what people are saying about me. I read the first 3 comments and immediately noticed a pattern.
yeah, Domino's pizza should only be eaten by cockroaches.
How dare you shit on Domino's pizza? My dog loves them.
Not even bugs should be subjected to the horror of Domino's pizza.
About 80% of the comments were about my lame offhand remark about Domino's. If I knew that was going to happen, I wouldn't have made that comment. Maybe I should apologize to Domino's? No matter what, that's not what I had anticipated the interview would be remembered for. Other comments were about how dedicated a worker I was, but my favorite comment was,
Keep on rockin'!
I especially loved it because in that guy's profile picture, he looked like he was a rocker himself. As I scrolled down, I saw a lot of fan art posts of me, mostly anime style, with huge squish heads and tiny bodies. Some even drew tiny hearts around my head. In one drawing, I was handing a bouquet of flowers to a shy girl. If I had known that being a giant bug is a turn-on for some women, I would have turned into a giant bug a long time ago. Evelyn gave a light tap to the door to get my attention. When I looked up from the screen, she was wearing nothing but a black see-through gown and a load of eyeliner. She had her hair done to look like Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's. It was a stunning look, especially for someone who seemingly didn't trim her bush. I couldn't stop staring, and after a while she looked down at me with a lascivious grin and asked,
Like what you see?
Oh, I'm so terribly sorry. I couldn't help myself. Are you expecting your boyfriend to come over?
I don't have a boyfriend. This is for you.
Really? You put on makeup before bed?
She took one of my legs and wrapped it around her waist, all the while looking at me with a broadening smile. I found her aggressive attempt to seduce me a bit off-putting. It seemed like the behavior of someone desperate. I took my leg off her body and slipped it back beneath the sheets.
Don't be shy. This isn't a strip club. Feel free to touch me.
She bent closer and whispered,
Anywhere you want.
It's kind of you to make this offer, but no.
She pouted and said,
Don't you find me attractive?
No, you're attractive. Very attractive. It's just that I don't get freaky on the first date.
You're such a gentleman. I like that. I didn't think there were any guys like you left, much less a giant bug.
I doubt there were guys like me ever.
She patted the back of my head, stood up, and walked over to the couch and lied down. After scrunching up to fit the shape of the couch, she pulled a blanket over herself and turned off the light. I was sad to see her having to look so uncomfortable and said,
That couch is going to give you a backache. Why don't you sleep in this Murphy bed?
Oh, no, you're my honored guest, the giant bug of my dreams. I couldn't have you sleeping on a couch.
You're very kind, but I won't be able to sleep knowing you'll be tossing and turning all night. Why don't you come and sleep with me? Just don't get too frisky beneath the sheets.
Thanks, I accept. I promise to behave myself.
She climbed onto the bed and we both went to sleep. Just to be clear, we didn't have sex, although I did wrap my legs around her as though she were a stuffed animal. I loved the feel of her skin against my exoskeleton, and I think she enjoyed it too. Don't get me wrong, I was tempted, and she wouldn't have said no, but I didn't want to take advantage of this vulnerable, starstruck young intern. I woke up to a loud shriek. I rubbed the sleep out of all of my eyes and saw a startled young woman with a gaping mouth. But not a second later, she regained her composure.
Oh my God, you're the bad guy, aren't you? I loved you with Steve Stevenson's show last night,
She said, then pumped my leg with her hand before saying to Evelyn,
Well, you must have gotten lucky last night.
If you're implying Evelyn had sex with me, nothing could be further from the truth.
I said. Both of them laughed, in unison. Then they sat together on the edge of the bed and chattered away. Meanwhile, I got up to prepare for the day ahead. I had to remind myself I had a flight to catch. Looking in the mirror, I fixed my crooked collar, smoothed out a few wrinkles on my suit, and straightened out my antennae. I stepped onto the balcony and was about to take off, but behind me Evelyn said in a tone of panic,
Wait, why are you leaving without saying goodbye?
I twisted my neck around and said,
I have to get back to Oakland. I have a job. I support my mother.
Evelyn's puppy dog eyes conveyed how stricken she was.
That's nice about your mother, but what about us? You spent the night with me. I thought you loved me.
I hesitated. On the one hand, I wish I still had even one. I found Evelyn to be a little nuts. Her actions felt a little too forward and her emotionality much too intense. On the other hand, she was maybe my only chance not to be lonely for the rest of my life. I decided to keep the door open.
Don't worry, I'll be back. Who doesn't love to visit New York? And we can text each other.
Will that be very soon?
Yeah.
I said, then turned to face the sky for a takeoff.
Aren't you going to give me a farewell kiss? Like in the movies?
Why not? She deserved at least that. I stood there while she nuzzled my face with hers, then gave me a short and sweet kiss on the labium. After she stroked my antennae briefly, she finally let go of me. And that concludes Chapter 4, Part 1 of Bug Guy. I thank Dave Strom and Edie Matthews for reading along with me. If you are interested in purchasing my novel, please check out the link below. Thanks for joining in, and see you next time for more Bug Guy.
When I used to do stand-up, and this one time I was there, I said to the bartender, I said, "Oh, I hope I don't start coughing." She goes, "I'll fix you right up." And she had lemon and a little hot water in the Grand Marnier, and it would just soothe your throat right down, because I didn't want to start coughing when I was on stage, you know.
In
Okay.
Bruce Campbell's book, he's this famous.
I know, he's an actor.
Yeah. And in his book, If Chins Could Kill, he talked about this concoction he drank when he was doing the voiceover for the movie, because they have to redo a lot of their lines in post.
Right.
It's a very fun book to read.
If chins could kill.
If
And
chins
what's the
could kill.
significance of that?
Well, he has this big chin, you see.
Like Jay Leno.
Yeah.
And Jay Leno, he considered getting surgery, but he would be out for 6 months, and he thought, "No, I'm not going to do that. Recovery." And that would be a radical
You
thing.
probably can't I don't know if you can see it, but I've always had a droopy left eyelid. It was much noticeable, more noticeable when I was younger.